So first and foremost, all glory to the Most High. I make this video so that He might use it for whatever purpose He has for it. Um, so I want to talk about something that this kind of happened around December, um, but it's uh, it's still relevant now. I guess you could say. Um, so the title of this is that um, it's probably it's gonna have something to do with like people being asleep. Um, but basically, let me get into this. So I had a dream. Um, I usually don't. I won't say I always write down the dates, because like dating them to me isn't really important as far as like for the sake of dating them. It's just so that if I happen to have like one dream that relates to another thing that the Lord showed me or like something else, then I can like trace back the date of it. Um, but just for the sake of it, I'll say that it was since I wrote it down this time. This was on December 17th, so this was a little bit while back. I'm not gonna say like that. There was basically three people in the dream, beside my or including myself, um, and I'm not gonna say the other. I'm not gonna like name the other two people. No one would know them anyways, but I'll just make up some names for them. Like I'll call them female one and man two or so. I don't know, some like random. Or I'll just give them like a like I don't know like some random like yeah like I'll just call them like female one and male two. It sounds mad weird, but whatever. I'll just go with it for now. So yeah. Basically, what happened was I'll just read it off like as I wrote it, I guess. So I was in a dimly lit bedroom where there were no windows, but it was clear that it was nighttime in the dream, or like either nighttime or like right before it, like so like the sun was down. Um, there were two beds in this room, and the girl is in one. She's like in one of the. She's like in one. There's a girl in one bed, but she's not asleep yet. And there's a guy who's next to me. He's like standing up next to me. I was like sitting in a chair next to the two beds. Um, so if you can imagine, basically like it's like I'm sitting in a chair, right? And in this room, um, in this bedroom, there's two beds like sitting in like that are set in front of me, right? One across, one in front of me, and then one behind that one directly. So, and they're I guess they're both like horizontal to me, basically. Um, so yeah. So I talked to the girl about things of the Lord, um, and she hears for like maybe like a second, but then goes to sleep after. I don't remember what I was saying, but after I woke up and wrote this stuff down, I remembered I was talking to her about something about the Lord, but I don't like remember what exactly. But yeah, she went to sleep after. She probably listened for like legit like 2 seconds, and then like went to bed. um, Now I was sitting in this chair, but I wasn't tired for bed. That was one thing I wrote down. Like we were both in this bedroom, or I wouldn't say both. All three of us. All three of us were in this bedroom. Um, but I wasn't tired for bed. Even I was sitting in the chair, but I wasn't tired for bed. And now that I think about it, there was only two beds in there to begin with. So, but anyways, not to tear you off. So after the girl went to sleep, I talked to the guy who was next to me about some things of the Lord, and he took in some things at first, but then he got in bed and went to sleep. So the girl, it's two bedrooms. I mean, not two bedrooms. I'm sorry. It's two beds in this bedroom, and I'm sitting in a chair, um, next to both of these beds. Right. I talked to the girl at first. Like I said, um, she stays for probably like a second and then goes to bed immediately after. And then I talked to the guy he was standing next to me, right? And so the guy, he listens for a little bit more than the girl, but eventually he goes to sleep also. He gets in the bed and goes to sleep also. Um, so that's that part of the dream. And then basically, uh, after all this, I didn't really protest in the dream. What happened? They just, it just kind of happened. And then, so after they went to bed, I stayed up, um, and looked at a TV that was, I think it was like to the right of us. But I basically like stayed up. Like I didn't. I just stayed. Like how like if you was in like I don't know in elementary school or something, your bedtime might be like 8, but you like stay up till 9. Like that's like the feeling I'm trying to like convey here. Like they went to bed, but I was still up. So like they went to bed, like they went to sleep, but I was like up watching something on TV or something, and then that's where the dream ended. And I wanna basically just talk about that for a second because at the time, basically what happened was this dream came after a certain thing that happened where the girl and the guy, um, they were directly in the dream as themselves, right? So previously before this, because this happened on December 17th, and previously before this, the girl had a nightmare, um, that was really, I'll just say it made her very distraught. And so when I talked to her about this thing, I basically tried to explain to her that dreams are like, I said this to her as it was given to me by someone else that the Lord sent to me. And so what I told her was that dreams are like, they're like windows that God gives you into what's happening in the spirit. That's like the best way I can describe it. Like if it's not like a direct, if it's not like a direct like vision, because there is a difference between dreams and visions. I can't like probably articulate that, but I know that there is a difference between like a dream and a vision. But anyways, after she had this nightmare, um, she was like talking about it to some people because it was like really like it was basically like a violent thing that like some stuff had happened to her family and whatnot. But I'm not gonna get into it. But basically, what happened was I was talking to her about this thing, and I was trying to explain to her like dreams are because she didn't, how do I say this? It's not, how do I say this? Because I'm not trying to like sound like I'm condemning her or something. It's just she doesn't have a relationship with Jesus, right? So I'm basically trying to explain to her like dreams are what God gives. Like the world will tell you that dreams are like just like the result of like stress and all this other stuff, whatever they tell you. I'm sure you can look up some definition of a dream online and it'll say some bullcrap. But dreams, I basically try to explain to her that dreams are like windows that God gives you into what's happening in the spirit. And I was talking to her like about some other things too. And when we got like probably like 5 minutes into the conversation, 4 or 5 minutes in, she basically was like, "Okay, well, what if I don't believe in all that?" And then I was like, "Insert name here." It doesn't matter if you don't believe in it; it still affects you. It's like you can believe that the sky isn't blue, it's still blue. Like you can believe that if you try to pet a snake, it's not going to bite you. I'm not saying that like you know let's replace that snake with like an alligator or something, or like a lion. You can believe that if you pet a lion, it's not going to bite you, right? Or like if you like kick a lion, it won't retaliate. But that doesn't change the truth from the truth. Like the truth is 2 + 2 is still 4. And so I was basically trying to explain to her like it doesn't matter if you don't believe like in the truth, it's still the truth. Like it's still going to affect you. Um, and so yeah, like after that, basically, um, I asked her. I basically told her I don't expect you to believe what I'm telling you, but I'm just telling you this so that nothing like will come of what you like saw. And so I literally told her I don't remember what like the prayer was that I told her specifically, but I know I mentioned before you go to bed, like pray to God and ask Jesus to cover you and you know I don't remember what I asked. I don't remember what like the prayer. That's crazy. I really don't remember the prayer that I asked her to pray, but I I asked her to pray something about you know like being covered in the blood. It was something with it was something it was something related to Jesus, you know. So, but I asked her to pray, and I asked her this, and she said something else about not believing in it, and so I was like, okay, well, I'm telling you to do this. Like, I knew, I didn't like say it out loud, but I was thinking to myself, okay, well, I'm telling her to do this. She's not gonna do it, so I guess I gotta pray for her. Which I'm not like saying that as like it was like some burden to me. I'm just saying like, okay, well, I can perceive now that she's clearly not gonna do this, so that no calamity happens. I should probably pray about this instead. So that's what happened. And she went to bed and how do I so this part she went to before she went to bed she had talked to someone else about it who I'll say was a major influence in her life. I'll just say that much. And that person told her, I wasn't expecting this actually, but she had actually mentioned most of the things that I had told her to the person that had influence in her life. And that person said, unwisely, to not regard, because I had overheard it. I didn't walk up to them like while they were speaking. I overheard it, and I know that I overheard it because the Lord had me to overhear it, which I'll get to that in a second. But yeah, so like I overheard it, and it was basically that the person who had influence in their life was basically telling them not to believe any of that. In their words, they said, "Don't listen to any of that kind of stuff," quote unquote. And so the girl goes to bed. She had two dogs, and to like basically like to comfort her. Like she left the lights on when she was sleeping, and she had the two dogs in her room, right? Like before, like she went to sleep. So keep in mind, this is all from a nightmare, right? And I'm telling this person that, yo, this is from the Lord. Like even if it's not from the Lord, it's from the Lord. Like you feel me? Like even if this was a demonic dream, it's something you should take heed of so that you go to the Lord about it, you know. But again, like I said, she didn't. She basically kind of, you know, it wasn't like no disrespectful type stuff. It was just like the response of her was, nah, no thanks. Like that's the best way I can put it. Like it's like if you see somebody with a broken leg and like you try to give them a cast or something, and they're like, nah, I'm good. I'll like walk. I'll like go to like a hospital or something. It's like, no, I got a cast for you. Like I got the cast. It's in the car. I can go get it right now. Like, I got the cast. Like it's right over there. Like it's here. And they're like, nah, I'm gonna go to the hospital instead. And it's like, okay, well, I guess you're going to the hospital. I had the cast for you, but you didn't want to take it. I had it right here. It's in the car. But whatever. And that's kind of what the situation was like. So that was the thing with the girl, and basically the thing with the guy. Whew. Man, I really don't want to talk about this, but I have to. I don't want to talk about this, but I have to. Um, so that was the thing with the girl, and the thing with the guy, because again, both of these people appeared as themselves in the dream, like with the two beds. Both of these people were the same people in the dream. So that was the thing with the girl, and so in the same way in the dream with the girl, where she didn't accept it in the waking life, in the spirit, she, immediately after, like I said, immediately after I had spoken to her about things of the Lord, because I don't remember what I told her in the dream, right? But I know that I was talking to her about things of the Lord, right? And so immediately in the dream, after I had finished, or no, I hadn't even finished speaking. She just went to bed like in the middle of it, and then I just swapped over to the guy. It was kind of crazy. I didn't realize that actually. Um, so yeah, that was the thing with the girl, and with the guy. Basically, what happened was the Lord had. I don't even remember, man. I don't remember like how it came about, but basically what happened was I needed to tell the guy something important from the Lord, and it was the type of thing. Basically, what happened was the Lord had the Lord had let's say afflicted my throat for about 2 days, maybe 3 days, I think, before I gave this message. And so what happened was it was like 2 or 3 days when my throat was just kind of like whatever that feeling is, where like if you do something like bad when you're a kid, and then you get that feeling in your throat, that bad feeling in your throat. I had that feeling for 2 days. It was either 2 days or 3 days, right? And then on the third day or the fourth day, whichever one it was, that was when the Lord gave me a dream about my. It was basically in the dream I was speaking. This is all going to like come back around. In the dream, I was speaking to the guy about something. Um, concerning the Lord. And so when I woke up from this, I was like, okay, so this bet. This means like I gotta tell this man. And so what happened was, as according to the one with the bedroom, as according to the dream with the bedroom, I was speaking to this guy. Basically, what I told him was that, because man, I really don't want to talk about this, but I have to put this out there. I don't want to talk about this, but I have to. Like, it's kind of like my flesh is fighting against me, but like I know I have to do it, so it's like kind of annoying me. Anyways, don't mind me. So basically, what the Lord needed me to tell him was about sex. And the guy has a girlfriend, and they, as the world goes about, they do their thing, I guess. And so basically, the Lord had me to tell him that sex is like marriage, but it's not marriage. In the sense that, like, sex is sex is when two people become like one. So it's like, it's like if you have sex with somebody, it's not just like the act of sex. Like, you're literally like, if they're like struggling with like anger, or like if they're struggling with pornography, if they're struggling with anger, if they have spirits of rejection on them, if they got whatever they got on them, basically is about to get on you. Or either if it's not about to get on you, it's gonna try to have access to you, because you're joined to them. So that's basically that's why sex is like marriage, but it's not marriage, because sex is like marriage is like the covenant, but sex is like when you become one in the covenant. And so I was talking about this, and I think I was also talking about homosexuality. It was just like, whatever I was talking to him about, it was basically like stuff like of the Lord. It was just I don't remember. That's crazy. I don't remember. I don't know why I can't remember. I know I talked about not to drag on. Basically, I'm gonna try to bring this all back together around so y'all can get this. But basically, I had followed the dream, and after I had spoken to him about the things that the Lord wanted me to speak to him with, that feeling in my throat left me. So like everything was like back to normal. And so basically after this, I'll just say that he didn't stop. I'll just say it. Fornicating. I'll just say it. My flesh is fighting against me to talk about him, but I don't care. Like, I need to get this out here because the Lord wants it. So basically what happened was I don't need to see someone to like know that it's happened. Like, I don't need to see it to know that it's there, for instance. So after we had talked about these things, I know that he didn't stop fornicating, but the knowledge is like there. Like, the knowledge was given. And so likewise, to bring this all back around again, like I said, in the dream, after I talked to the guy and the girl in the dream, the girl immediately went to sleep, and then the guy, I'm moving my camera. The girl immediately went to sleep, and then the guy, he kind of endured for a little bit, but then he went to sleep also. And the reason why I want to call this video, Don't Fall Asleep, is because the Lord warned, and I had noticed this goes back to me saying, like, just because how I said that I don't need to see something to know that it's there. The Lord said, and I'm not one of those people that can I don't memorize every single like scripture's location. I just kind of know them. And the Lord said back, he mentioned he mentioned very clearly, take heed what you hear. And I think he also said take heed how you hear. So he said in one place take heed what you hear, and he said in another place take heed how you hear. How ye, I'm trying to pronounce it as the King James say it, but he basically said pay attention to what you allow to enter into your ears. And the reason he said that, he said explaining afterward, he said, I'm paraphrasing here, but he said take note of what you let enter into your ears, because to him who hath more shall be given, to him who hath not that shall be taken, even which he appears to have. And before I had found out about this scripture, when I was younger, I had noticed that there were Christians in my life that were much, much older than me that knew less than me. Back when I was like 12, 13, 14, 15. And that really it didn't do anything negative to me per se, that in and of itself, but I noticed it. It was there. And I didn't know why it was there. But when I came to the scripture, I realized that the only way they could have been in that situation is if they had rejected something that God wanted to tell them. Like the Lord, I had mentioned before in another video that the Lord is like a gentleman, that he won't do any, he won't walk in to eat with you if you don't open the door to him. He's not going to force himself in. But that applies to his word also. Which is why the title of this video is Don't Fall Asleep. Because he says, take heed to what you hear. Because to him who hath, more will be given. But to him who hath not, from him will be taken even what he seemeth to have. Those people that were older than me, that had less fruit of the Spirit, it made me to understand that at some point, the Lord was trying to give them something that he wanted to give them. But for whatever reason, they didn't accept it. And so they were left in a place where they didn't receive it, and were left in a place where basically they were, instead of a glass being filled with milk, they were a glass that was, let's say, filled one-fifth of the way, instead of being all the way filled up. And so it was with this gentleman and the lady that I was speaking about in this dream, and also the people who I spoke to in real life that the dream reflected. I had spoken to both of them about things of the Lord, and the girl, she fell asleep right away, right then. She didn't even it didn't get in here. It didn't penetrate the heart. Or rather, I shouldn't say it didn't penetrate the heart. I should say she didn't let it into her heart. And I'm not going to say why. I'm not condemning her. I know when there's, I'll get to this later, but when you're in your walk with the Lord, you come to realize how certain things come to be about. So I'm not condemning either of these people for not abiding with the word. What I'm telling you is this: the same way they fell back asleep, the girl didn't endure for any amount of time. As soon as I started speaking things to the Lord, she for 2 seconds, and then she went to sleep. And then the guy, he endured for a little bit, but then he went to sleep. This is how do I say this? This is the reason I'm saying this is that God doesn't want anyone to be left. But the people who are asleep are in danger of being left. God doesn't want anyone to be left. But the people who are asleep, and there are people still asleep, you can't be asleep and as the Lord says, he says, take heed and watch. He says, what I say to you, I say to all, watch. Or the 12, what was it, the 12 virgins, and only 5 of them had the lamps, and the other ones were left behind. It's the same thing with here, man. Don't be if you're asleep, you can't get up. When the Lord is knocking on the door, you can't get up. If you're asleep, you can't get up. So when the Lord knocks on the door and says, hey, come into my house, my dinner's ready, if you're asleep, you can't get up. So if you can't get up, how can you go into the dinner? So yeah, it's just that's what the meat of this is. But back to tying this thing around. Basically, what I was mentioning earlier. Because the thing is, there are people that you can see why they can't receive what you're trying to give them, because the Lord was how I mentioned earlier that the girl had someone in her life who was a large influence in her life. If that person had told them to listen at all slightly to what I had told them, which they themselves, they weren't a believer either. They didn't have Christ in their life. But if that person who had influence over the girl's life had told her in any wise to take heed to what I had told her, she wouldn't have fallen asleep. Like, the Lord wouldn't have shown me her falling asleep. And as for the guy, he had been raised with people who had taught him to know the Lord, but he kind of trailed off. I'll say, I won't say fell away, but I'll say he trailed off and may currently still trailed off. But the point is this: that if you're asleep, like, you can't, like, you can't go with him. Like, you can't go with, like, when Jesus comes to take us, you can't go with him if you're asleep. You have to be awake. Like, you have to be up and, like, ready. It's like the 12 virgins. Like, only 5 of them, and, I don't remember if it was 12, I don't remember if it was 5, but whatever the case is, we know that there is only, like, half of them, if that went in with the Lord. And the rest said, "Open up to us." And he said, "I know you not." If you're asleep, you can't go in with him. You have to be awake. And so if you ever find yourself in a place where someone, even if you don't know, how do I say this? You know what? I'm not going to add anything onto this. I'll leave it at that. And however way the Lord is going to use this video, he'll use it. But just don't go about being asleep. I don't know how the Lord is going to use this video, but just don't go about being asleep. And don't let anyone, I don't care, because like I said, the guy had a girlfriend and he was in fornication, and I've been told to tell him about these sorts of things to basically so that, as like sort of like a warning, right? But he was still in it. He was still in fornication. And I don't think it's something that he can give up easily. But in the case of these people, or using them as an example, how he, is in a relationship with the girl who probably will not, adhere to him not having sex with her. And in the case with the woman, the girl I was talking about, where the person who had influence in her life was basically just keeps tearing her away from the things of God. As the Lord says in his word, don't let a man take your crown. Don't let anything get in the way of you getting with the Lord. Don't let anything get in the way of you leaving with the Lord. I don't care if it's parents. I don't care if it's a boyfriend, a girlfriend, your wife, your husband, your children. Don't let anything get in the way of you being present with the Lord. Because you don't want to stay here. You don't want to be the one who wakes up the next morning after that night and realizes that you were left. Or you don't want to be in the middle of that night and you witness all the people being taken up to glory, and you're the one that is left and watching and yelling out at the top of your lungs, "Lord, I'm sorry. Lord, I'm sorry." Because it's not going to be like people, we're all shut up in our houses now. And whenever this video gets published, maybe somebody will look back on it at a time when all this is passed over. But due to the virus and all this other stuff, we're all shut up in our houses now, right? Because of the quarantine. But half of the crap that people find scary now is nothing compared to what's about to happen. Like, it's not to be compared. And in fact, it's like what the Lord said, where he said, in those times, such perils would become as were not since the world began, neither shall they ever be again. It's the same thing. Like, it's just not. It's not to be compared to. Like, you don't want to. Like, you just don't want to be here. After the Lord takes, cause this is the severity of being asleep. Like, this is the severity of not having your eyes awake and open and watching. After Jesus takes us, like, after he takes his people, because he's not coming for the church, he's coming for his people. He's not coming for the ones who are not looking for him. He's coming for his people. He's not coming for the whole church. The church is just the church. He's coming for his people, like those who belong to him, those who are looking for him. And if you're asleep, you can't go in with him, because you can't. Like, it's like imagine if somebody came to your house and they say and they say, "Hey, I'm having a party. Come over with me and celebrate." If you're asleep, how can you hear them? Like, I'm not even talking about spiritually, like, just physically. Like, if I'm asleep, like, I'm making this video right now, but if I'm asleep and someone comes knocking on my door, how am I going to hear them? because I'm asleep. I can't hear them. So if God is calling us, and He says, "Come up hither," if I'm asleep in the Spirit, how can I go up? So it's just, yeah, man. Don't let anyone get in the way. Your relationship with Him is more important, man. You don't want to be here, because I promise you, whatever terrors, whatever, like when God takes His people, I'm just gonna sum it up with this: when God takes His people from this earth, because as He said, you are the salt and the light of the earth. When God takes His people from this earth, it's like it's gonna be like a tsunami. Just like God's hand is like currently holding back like a bunch of, like it's like God's hand is currently holding back. Let's say for the sake of measurement, let's say His hand is holding back 1,000-foot tsunami of water of disaster. And when He takes His people from here, that water of disaster, His hand is going to release it, and that water of disaster is going to flood over the entire earth. I'll speak on this more in like other videos, but don't be asleep. Don't be asleep. Don't let anyone be the reason why you're asleep. If you gotta give up a boyfriend, give it up. If you gotta give up a girlfriend, give it up. If you gotta give up something, give it up. It's not worth being asleep. I don't care what comfort you have with whatever thing there is in your life that you think is comforting you. It's not worth it if it's going to keep you from being with Lord when He calls you. Because you can't go with Him if you're asleep. You have to be awake. I hope you can receive this. Be blessed in Jesus' name.